Hi, Mama. Hey, I've got a question for you. Are you being affected by the motherhood penalty? Did you know that mums overall end up being traditionally less successful, yes, than men, but also other females who ended up not having children? My name is Elizabeth Gulliver, and I consider myself a mum championing mums. And I would love to capture the attention of women who have raised young children and who are now getting a little bit of time back for themselves. But instead of allowing that time to be sucked up by what's nearest and most convenient, let's look at how we can create a life that means that the rest of your life you're living from a heart-centered space and that you're living your dreams. Now, I'll be interviewing mostly mums who have gone through this period and who are now doing amazing things. So if you are a morally and spiritually focused feminine mama who enjoys traditional family values, this will be great for you. Now, it's my podcast and I love talking about femininity as well. I love talking about spirituality and I love talking about the whole family and how we can win together. Now, if you're curious about that motherhood penalty, then I have put a little quiz together for you that you can get free in my toolkit. You'll find it on elizabethgulliver.com. Okay, on with the show. Hello and welcome, everybody. I am so excited to introduce our guest today. Her name is Therese Tucker. Now, this woman is everything that I kind of dreamed to be over the last 20 years of my life. All the subjects that she has mastered have been the things that I just want to read about in my spare time. So Therese is a intuition self-empowerment coach. She is a psychic medium. She is a channel. She is an energy practitioner. And if that wasn't enough, she's also an author of an amazing book, and it's called Confidence is Magic. And I've just read some of the reviews on Amazon, all 5-star, by the way. It looks amazing. I can't wait to get stuck into it. So, Therese, welcome.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. It's such an honor to be here with you today.
Oh, it's such an honor to have you. So I just read off quite a few things, and I have a feeling that some people might not know exactly what each of those is. So would you mind just explaining those so that people can get a grasp what you actually do and what you offer for people?
Yes. So I would call myself maybe a Renaissance woman. I want to do everything. I want to do all the
Yeah,
things.
all the things,
And I'm always
absolutely.
inspired by something new. So I feel like the list will keep growing.
Fabulous.
Predominantly the work I do. So I am a psychic medium and a channel. I do work with, I have a woman's circle. Well, it's a circle for everyone, but it predominantly attracts women. It's called a spirit
Yeah.
circle. And we work with that every new moon and full moon. And we're working with
Wow.
the energy of the cosmos to get in alignment with just the messages, because the universe is kind of giving us a forecast of the energy to be in. And so we work with that every month. I
Yeah.
also do one-on-one coaching. I'm a self-empowerment coach. I help women tap into their intuition, foster a growth mindset, and develop deep self-trust so that they can
Wow.
create the life that feels like it's in alignment with their true purpose, which is some
Yes.
of the biggest work I do. And of course, there's the book. I'm also an artist as well, which is something I've been pretty much most of my life. So, that and
Wow.
working with spirit are the two things that have been in my life the longest. It's just been a part of who I am and growing up. And the work I do with spirit actually goes into the coaching practice. So, oftentimes, when I'm working with clients, I'm also tapping into what I call their spirit team. So I see us all having not just a guide, but we actually have a team of energy around us that's with us all the time. And it's there for us to access. I call them spiritual tech support because they're there and available to you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. However, you have to call them. They're generally not calling you unless there would be some kind of emergency that would allow that through. Most of the time, they're on standby waiting to talk to you. And they're always asking and saying, I love talking to you and you never call enough. And so part of the work I do is to help people connect in with that energy and recognize that you do have guidance. You do have a team, if you will, that has your back and is conspiring in your favor and helping you along your own life journey as well as your spiritual growth journey. I am predominantly I'm working with women to help them tap into their intuition, to foster a growth mindset and develop deep self-trust so they can live a life in alignment with their true purpose. And a big
Wow.
part of how I do that with them is tapping into their what I call a spirit team. And so the
Yeah.
way that I describe this is like spiritual tech support. We have a 24-hour, 7-day a week spiritual tech system on our side. It's
I love the way you phrase that. That's brilliant. I mean, I'm often talk to my children about their spiritual support team, and I
yes,
do tell them always ask for advice and ask for guidance.
yes.
But I'm definitely going to have to explain it to them in those terms.
Well, the reason I love to think of it that way is because, again, the law of free will. So, you being able to choose whether or not you are deeply connected with spirit is a big part of why they're not always talking to you, because they're
Yes.
on standby waiting for you to call them. And they always say, "You don't call enough. You can talk to us
Yeah,
more, ask for more."
absolutely. Hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. No, that's wonderful. And you've done all of this, and you're a mum.
Yes.
Now, my my biggest reason for doing what I'm doing is because I found it so difficult to get on with anything during that process of raising small children. Can you tell me a bit about what it was like for you as a mum when you started to get a bit of time back for yourself? Like, how old were your children? It's different for every single mum I've spoken to so far. And how did you know that you were able to maybe do a bit more for yourself when, obviously, as mums, we're so we just want to give everything to our children all the time, which is so natural. But when did you start to be able to be in your own right again?
Well, life has a funny way of directing us towards what we're supposed to do, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
So my story is interesting because really I feel like my children were beautiful catalysts for me to move into the
Oh,
direction that I'm moving in now. Before
that's
I had
lovely.
children, I was pursuing my acting career. So I went to a fine arts college, got my BFA in performance and acting, and that's really what I thought
Wow.
that was the plan. I moved to New York and I pursued
Yeah.
acting in New York, and that's where I actually met my husband. And at the
Yeah.
time, he was working in finance, and it felt like, okay, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to act, he's going to work here, we're going to have this
Yeah.
fabulous life. And
Yes.
then I honestly, at the time, I was on the fence about whether or not I was going to have children. Although I always talked about the future as if they were there. My husband and I would always joke about, when we have
That's
kids,
interesting. Yeah.
but I
Okay.
hadn't like actually decided. And then one day I was like, why am I resisting this? Clearly, I'd already had their names picked out since I was 16. I knew who they were. And I was like, I just need to decide. So I decided.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
um, the week after we found out I was pregnant, my husband lost his job. He was, like I said, working in finance. And this was during 2009, the big economic crash that happened here in the United States, where we had that
Yeah.
big recession. And
Yes.
it threw us into a tailspin. My husband
I can imagine.
had been working for the same company for 12 years and was told
Wow.
he wasn't going to lose his job. And so when he did, he actually went into quite a deep depression around that,
Yeah.
right as we were having a child. And it was mostly the stories he had about what it means to be a man and a father and showing up and
Yeah.
feeling like he
Yeah.
was failing. Well, what that did in me is it sort of kicked me into gear where I'm like the boat feels like it might sink and someone needs to row, and he feels too weak to row right now. So I
Yeah.
started rowing as much as I could. So
Yeah.
it was interesting because being a first time mom, not really having that cocoon space to just be, there was also this underlying current of something's got to shift. And it went on for a while. By the time she was 9, we had moved back. We were in New York and we'd moved back to Washington State, where I'm originally from. And
Okay.
interesting, this is where the art comes back in. So art has been with me my entire life. It's part of my own healing process. And doing
Mm.
art helps me feel deeply connected to my soul, and it just helps me to regulate my nervous system. It's very powerful for me. And first the art
Yeah.
came back, and that became a career. I started selling a lot of art and then managing artists and
Wow.
then being a art gallery director for a little while. And
My
even
goodness, I mean, you should be so proud of yourself just for that. I mean, a lot of people can't actually make it work with having art as their career. I mean, which is a real shame. I mean, it should be a lot more sought after.
yeah.
But I mean, that in and of itself is quite an achievement.
I the interesting thing is during this time, the need to balance things out was so strong. And it was more like I felt like I was utilizing whatever tools I had at hand. And that's always how it's felt when when I've moved in my
Yeah,
career, is that I'm just utilizing what I have at hand. And
yeah,
so then my son comes along unexpectedly 4 years after my daughter. And
yeah.
and then the person who owned the art gallery was like, "Oh, well, you're not going to be able to work here if you have to raise a baby and a toddler." And so I found myself out of a job.
Wow.
I was like, "Okay."
Pressure.
Exactly, exactly. And so everything kept driving me inward. And in the background of my life was the intuitive stuff. But I had this deep fear or belief that unless someone gave me permission to do this, I was not allowed to
Yeah.
claim it. So I was doing it,
Wow.
but I was doing it sort of in secret or in the closet. I
And
was,
half-heartedly maybe, not feeling that you could really unleash yourself onto the world?
it was a self judgment that I
Yeah?
had maybe picked up pieces from
Mm,
society and just kind of
yeah,
created a narrative in my mind that created this limiting belief. Cannot
yeah,
I cannot tell people that this is who I am because no one would either believe me or give me permission. And it was one of
right,
these things where the universe was like, use this tool. It's been given to you. You have this. And I was
right,
refusing. And so the universe,
right.
the way it works is, right, first it taps you, then it nudges, then it knocks, then it bangs, and then the next thing you know, a semi truck is coming to hit you. And
Yeah.
at the time, I was doing courses on developing your intuition further, and I was
What led you to that? I mean, did you always have an interest in
I
it?
did, yes. So growing up, my family growing up around me was religious, but I was never forced to be religious, and so I was allowed to
Yeah,
maintain this sort of natural connection with
yeah.
source. And my mom was very much rebelling against her religious upbringing. And so even as a young child, I was brought to like psychics, and I had my tarot cards read when I was 8, and
Oh,
went
brilliant.
to unity churches. I don't know if you have those in the UK,
Don't think so.
but
Maybe
it's like a
I haven't seen them.
non-denominational church that talks more about
Uh-huh.
the metaphysical side. And I
Ah,
started
okay.
reading A Course in Miracles when I was 15, just very interested in the
Wow.
metaphysical. Made so much sense to me.
Yeah.
So it was with me the whole time. And the irony is that people would pay me to do readings on them or energy things, and it was like, oh, okay, this is this fun side thing I'm doing.
Oh, so that was just your little side job
It
that
was, it
it
was.
came naturally with no effort, but you didn't pay it that much heed?
Well, again, I was afraid to. I was afraid that
Yeah.
to claim it because I had this terrible feeling of imposter syndrome. Because again, I'm waiting for permission from I don't know who. The
Oh,
irony is
I know. Yes.
that I
I have
actually,
a sneaky feeling nearly all mums watching this will relate to that.
yeah. And here,
And
I just want to share with you the irony is, so Marianne Williamson was a huge mentor to me at the time because I was listening to her lectures and reading her books. And I actually met her at the age of 19, and I had her sign one of her books, and I just burst into tears and I said, I want to be just
oh,
like you someday. And she got up
oh,
from the table, came around, gave me a hug, and she said, you already are. I'm just older. So
wow. Wow.
technically, I had permission and I still couldn't accept it.
Wow.
Yeah.
But how lovely to have had that to sort of remember, to
Yes.
help you give yourself permission.
Yes.
Some sort of legs under the table.
S- So all along, while raising small children, both my children, they're only 4 years apart. And at the time of my son just months after he was born, we went into another crunch scenario. And right before that, I remember I was following someone who was doing a shamanic practice, and it was about like your future compass and getting directions from different parts of yourself. And the spiritual part of myself said, dream bigger. And I could not figure out what that meant. It said, dream bigger. And again, we were back in the financial struggle because I was resisting where I was supposed to be. And
Yes.
we,
Because
my,
it's scary, isn't it? I mean, it's not one of those proven paths. It's not one of one of those stable quotation marks. Obviously, your husband had one of those stable jobs, which ended up not being stable when you needed it to be.
right.
But this, the path that you're now being led down, it's like, oh, I can imagine that would have been very scary. But
And both of these moments of instability were actually sort of centered on these children, even though they had nothing to do with it. It was just, I feel like because both of them feel in my life, and you can share with me how you feel as a mother, they're powerful, game-changing moments when you have a child, where you're bringing in this new energy. And I really
100%.
felt like they brought blessings and they brought awareness to me with each one of them. So with my daughter, the awareness she brought to me was, I really need to learn how to love myself, because as a woman, and I struggled with body image issues and really had a sort of love-hate relationship. And I realized I really need to get a hold of this, because there's another young woman coming up behind me who's
You
going
don't
to.
want her to feel that way.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So she brought that
Hmm.
awareness that this is what I need to work on right now, because somebody else is going to be deeply affected by how I
Yes,
am in
because
relationship to myself.
they don't do what you say, they do what you do, don't they? She
Exactly.
would absorb that from you.
Exactly. And I remember there
Yeah.
was just the moment where she was a baby and she crawled up to a mirror and kissed herself. And I'm like, I never want her to lose that. I just want to preserve
Oh,
that. So I'm going to work on
yeah,
myself. And then with my son, as he came in, and again, both of them, behind them came this chaos of like, you're going to change. And if you
yeah.
don't, uh, you can't be comfortable, because unfortunately, when what inspires them to change is usually the discomfort of, I can't be here anymore, I can't be in this space, whatever's causing that. And with my
Mm,
son, that the whole message of dream bigger came in, and I realized, how are they going to know that they can go after what they truly desire in life if nobody's modeling that for them? And that's where I got
brilliant.
really serious about, it is time to stop limiting
Yeah,
myself. It's time to stop lying to myself and saying I can't have something when it's already showing up in my life, and basically I'm ignoring it or denying it. I just won't claim
yeah,
it. And so he
yeah,
really helped me understand that in order for me to show them how to claim things in their life, I'm going to have to claim this. And really
yeah.
that's where the whole psychic abilities really actually cracked wide open, because I was like, I'm tired of denying this part of myself and kind of keeping it
Yeah,
shut down, and
yeah.
partly because I didn't want to be rejected or um teased. I mean, which I did. I got teased for that for sure. There's definitely family, they love me, but they don't get it, right? And so they were like, I don't
Yeah,
know this part of you, so I'm just not going
yeah,
to acknowledge it.
yeah, absolutely. So was it then you acknowledging when your son came, that part that then allowed you to kind of trust yourself?
There was no other choice. So I'm kind of stubborn. So it was either
Yeah,
trust myself and lean in, or keep
yeah,
resisting and watching things sort of crumble.
yeah,
Nothing was solidifying in my life. My husband at the time was working on real estate, and that wasn't solidifying for him. So we had
right.
another
Right.
moment where it was, um between the two of us, I had more clarity. I was just really afraid of what I was getting clear on, because it
Yeah,
wasn't a solid path. It was its own thing.
exactly. Yeah, and scary. And so with this sort of Thank you so much for taking the time to be listening to this podcast today. If you are enjoying the content, then can I just encourage you to like and subscribe? And if you would like to, go ahead and leave a comment. We always like to hear your thoughts. Okay, on with the show. And so with this sort of understanding of trust that you've managed to then forge in yourself,
Yes.
is that something that you bring to your clients when you work with your clients?
Absolutely, because I feel like this is key for you living in alignment with your authenticity and purpose. You're
Yeah,
receiving messages from yourself, whether it's your higher self, your team, or just
yeah.
internally, the knowing that you're holding. You're
Mm,
receiving messages on the path forward all the time. And the
mm,
beautiful thing is you're designing this path. It's not something outside of you that's
yeah,
creating this choice. It's actually the path in front of you is based on the choices you've made. And if you're not
yeah.
loving those choices, if you're not loving the path you're going down, you have the ability to choose again.
Hmm.
And
Yes,
so,
absolutely.
yeah, it's really about understanding that if you're feeling this sort of sense of incompleteness, or you're feeling like I'm hiding, I'm not showing up to my life, a big part of it isn't because you don't have the clarity or the answers, it's because you're resisting, or many
Mm.
times you're living in a fixed mindset. It has to be this way or nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. So you kind of got to just feel the fear and do it anyway sometimes, don't you?
Well, when you understand it, when you understand what's going on, it can eliminate some of that fear. Also, a big part of it is understanding what the fear is, because a lot of people misinterpret fear to mean that if I feel fear, I'm doing something wrong. When
Right.
a
Yes.
big part of fear is that it will meet you when you're outside of your comfort zone. And that's usually a good sign. It means you're going to
Yeah.
grow right now.
Yes. Yeah. There's definitely not much growth inside the comfort zone, is there? So
Unfortunately,
if no, it'd be good, wouldn't it? Nice and cozy in here. So if someone was to sort of approach you, where would you start with them? I mean, do you do like a psychic reading? Do you do any
yes.
mediumship for them just to sort of help um, understand together where they should start on their path? How would you approach that working with one of your clients?
Sure, it really depends on what they're looking for. I do offer readings. I do have readings that people can do, and I also do one-to-one coaching. So if it's a sort
Mm.
of, I just want clarity around an event or something that's going on, I want to understand more deeply, then generally they do a reading. But many times when I'm working with someone, they're actually they have a vision in their mind of where they're moving towards. So I work with women on both life issues as well as business. And
Uh-huh.
actually,
Oh, that's
a
good.
lot of business stuff comes forward, maybe because it's such a big part of my own journey. But they have a
Yeah.
vision of where they want to go, and they know that it's calling to them, and they're so
Yeah.
confused about how
Mhm.
to connect to it, or they have such fear and trepidation about moving forward because, again, we
Yeah.
get fixed mindset about things. It's supposed to look this way, right?
Yeah.
So predominantly, we do a lot of one-to-one coaching. It's usually at least 3 months where we're digging
Mm.
in. I've had people who went from having trouble just having a roommate to actually traveling all around the world because that was what their soul was trying to tell
Wow.
them. I've had other people
Wow.
who felt like they were stifled and shut down and sort of being pushed into a closet, and now they have big YouTube channels and followings, and they're
Oh,
doing
wow.
speaking tours. Other people who are working on, developing, they grew up with a limit like um an autoimmune disorder, let's say,
Yeah.
that they've lived with all their life, and they're realizing that
Yeah.
that wasn't something that was given to them to impede them, but rather empower them.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, it must be so lovely then to be working with these predominantly ladies, I think you said you work with, and to see them go from where they start, then to see them thriving and shining. What a sense, of achievement that you must have, and how lovely for you to witness their journey. Can you not hear me?
Hello, hello.
Sorry. I can see you. I can hear you.
I can't see you or hear you, but I can tell that you're in the room.
Okay. Um,
Okay, good. I'm glad you can hear me. Um,
okay.
should I
Uh,
keep talking or should I just wait till we get back on camera?
uh,
Okay.
can you not hear me yet?
I love technology. That would help, yeah. If you want to ask me here while it's recording, I will answer. I'll read
Yeah,
what you're
maybe.
writing and answer the camera if that works. Or if you want me to go out and come back in, just let me know.
Okay.
Maybe try going in and out. Okay, give me a moment. Let me see. How do we leave? Um, hold on. I need to put my glasses on. See what it says. Leave studio. Okay.
Oh, can you see me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. This is okay. I get it. I absolutely get it. So
Good
we're
old technology, but we persevere. We
we do.
persevere.
We do.
So still recording. And I was just asking Therese to sort of explain how lovely it must be for her to um, witness the journey that her clients take from, let's say it's someone who found it really difficult just to have a flatmate to then traveling the world. And it's through the work with Therese that they go through these sort of deep learning experiences that they can uncover parts of themselves and unblock parts of themselves to be able to take this journey and to shine.
Yes.
And so, talking about shining, Therese, another thing I always love to ask my mums is about their femininity, because personally, I found that while raising small children, I definitely didn't have as much time for upkeep because unless you're one of the rare ladies who is a complete natural beauty, rises in the morning, just has to put a comb through her hair and she's at her loveliest. For the rest of us, it does take a little bit of upkeep. But also internally, the way you feel internally towards your femininity, I personally felt that I started to get time for both inner and outward femininity a little bit more as my children were getting older. And I'd love to know your experience of your relationship with your femininity, relating just to you in general, but also with having children.
Yes. So this is interesting because I feel like I've struggled with my femininity most of my life. And I say that because I always worried that I was like too masculine. I don't know where that kind of feeling came from. I tapped in, and of course, I also do past life regression work. And of course, there's been lifetimes where we've been both. We've been men, we've been women, we've
Absolutely.
been other things too. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I think I just sort of remembered a more masculine energy. The irony is
Mhm.
always kind of like more on the girly side, like always wanting to wear dresses, always
Yeah.
wearing like lots of jewelry, like just all the
Yeah.
things that make you feel like more feminine. I've always engaged in. I just had a very um like it wasn't a deep relationship. I wasn't deeply like I didn't feel connected, and maybe this is again because my energy in this world was always like I grew up, there was domestic violence in my household at a young age, and my
So
mom
sorry to hear
divorced
that.
my dad when I was around 4 or 5. But the story I was told was, I'm a survivor. We're survivors. And so there's sort of this warrior that sort of built up in my mind. Now it was very
Yeah.
like Xena warrior princess is sort of
Yes.
how I see
I
her.
can understand that. Yeah.
But it's a very sort of masculine version of femininity, of very much of like
Yeah.
go out there, the protectress, go, you know,
Yeah.
nothing's going to take me down. And so always having this
Yeah.
sword, sort of in a mental image of myself with a sword. And it's been hard to put that sword down. And in
Yeah.
later years, so my children
Yeah.
are, my oldest is 13 now. And I would say it wasn't until she was around 9 that I really started to recognize I need to soften for my own sake. My nervous system was not doing well with holding all this tense, rigid, I've got to get this done, hustle, hustle energy. And I definitely
Right.
fell into that trap. That was a trap that
Yeah.
was happening pretty intensely around 2016 through 2019. We were in that space, the girl bossing
Yeah.
space.
Yeah.
And not that there's any shame with girl bossing. I love it. It's just you've got to
No, exactly.
balance
It
it.
has to be true to you, doesn't it? It has to actually be something that is coming from you naturally rather than being forced through whether it's what you think society expects of you or through sort of trauma and programming. And therefore, if it's not true of you, then it's a good journey to go on to uncover what is true of you.
It wasn't a natural space for me to live in 24/7. And I,
Right.
at the time, felt like maybe I was supposed to in order to be successful because
Yeah.
you know, at the same time as being a mom, you're very driven to be successful, I find, as a mom who works because of your children. That's your
Yeah.
driving force is I have
Yeah.
these people who are relying on me and depending on me, and you really want to show all the way up for them for lots of different reasons. Um,
Yeah.
and I really felt like in order to be successful, I needed to live in that space. And it was pushing me towards burnout. I think that I was on the edge of adrenal fatigue. And then, of course, 2020 happened. And I feel like anybody who was holding on to, um, I feel like if you were gripping life really hard, it really hit you that your nervous system
Yeah.
was taking
Yeah.
a hit there. And
But then I guess if you were trying to be everything to everyone and do everything, the whole have it all thing,
yes,
I guess that might have been some of the burnout you were feeling.
absolutely. I mean, it was too much to hold. And again, old patterns, even us who are, whether you're a coach or a therapist, you also have your own stuff to work on, and usually
Yeah.
those things that you're working on help serve your work. But I
Yeah.
really recognize that yes, there was some people pleasing patterns. There was a pattern of sort of putting my own needs behind, and then usually because those needs weren't being met, sort of feeling like I was fraying at the edges. There was just nothing that was coating or soothing my nervous system and regulating me.
Right.
And
And do you find that that was the mum in you that was putting your needs behind, or was it the achiever in you that was putting your needs behind, or both?
both,
Yeah.
both. I Because I grew up being very achievement oriented,
Yeah.
and it was at the time a coping mechanism as a younger person, like trying to
Mhm.
get that approval and acceptance by being successful.
Yeah.
And that was also putting my own needs behind, because the need was, can I just be loved for me? Can I just be
Right.
and be loved?
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. And I think a lot of people struggle with that one, don't they?
Oh, yes.
It's funny. I was telling my children recently because we're fostering kittens at the moment,
Oh,
and they're so incredibly cute. And it's an immediate thing. As soon as you see these kittens, you just love them automatically. They don't need to do or be anything apart from just be in order to be loved. And the kids obviously feel the same. And I remember saying to them that, you know what, kids, you know how you feel about these kittens, how they don't need to do or be anything for you to just love them. All they have to do is be. I said, that's how I feel about you. You don't have to do or be anything. You will always be loved just for being you. But I think not many of us actually feel that way. We don't feel that we can just be ourselves and be loved just because we are here. And I think obviously that's something that you're illustrating, and that it would be nice if we all overcame. We knew that if us being here, us being true to ourselves was enough.
It's true that that's such a deep one that I work with, that worthiness issue. And it's got a deep root for a lot of us. It starts early. I so love that you gave that message to your children. And I really hope that that sinks in deep for them, because what a gift. Most of
Yeah.
us, and I'm, again, this isn't to blame, parents or anything like that. A lot of times we're struggling, and I look back and I see, when I look back with adult eyes at my own parents, I'm like, they were very young. That my mom had just turned 21 when I was born. And
Right.
so they were young and they were also struggling, and they didn't have that awareness to know that, whatever they're trying to get done is being registered as, oh, I have to show up and do those things in order to gain approval. But it
Yeah.
does happen. It does happen. And so
Yeah.
a lot of times when we are trying to reclaim our worthiness, we have to realize that there's also a sort of, when you have a worthiness issue, you also tend to self-abandon quite easily.
Yes,
And so
definitely.
a big part of that is showing up for yourself, like really
Yeah.
having your own back. And so the self-abandonment in my case was, there were these abilities that were coming through clearly and were here for not just to be of service to me, but so that I could be of service to the world in the way that I agreed to at a soul level. And yet
Yes.
I was so afraid of being rejected that I was like, nope, can't, nope, this can't exist, because, someone's
Right.
going to say something. And that was the
Yes.
self-abandonment. I was judging myself before anybody judged me.
Right. So you indicated there that you found these abilities, they came to you. Obviously, you said you studied, but the abilities came to you fairly naturally. Is that right?
Yes. Well, so it started in childhood. And I also want to, before I get into my story, because it could feed into someone else's, I want to make it very clear. My belief on this is that we are all intuitive. This is not something that's given to special people, as a lot of times society builds it up that only certain people have it. I truly
Yeah.
believe in, and from the communication I received with spirit, we all have it. It's an extension. Your psychic senses are an extension of your physical senses. They go together. And it's
Yeah.
given to us as a toolkit for being here on earth. It helps us to be here. So
Mm.
it doesn't mean you have to act on those abilities and like open up, like become a psychic channel and do that as
Yeah.
work. I'm just saying that this is
Yeah.
something that was given to you to help you navigate being on this plane. And
Yes.
so
Absolutely.
whether it shows up for you like it showed up for me, it doesn't matter. You still have them. And we all have a unique combination. But going back to my own story, at a young age, I was seeing spirit and hearing it, and didn't realize that that was different or odd.
So how old were you at the time? When is your earliest memory of this?
So my parents were still married at the time. So somewhere between 3 and 4, I
Very
remember
early then.
seeing spirit in my room, and it scared the
Yeah.
bejesus out of me. I was always the kid that had to like get out of bed and like go sleep between my parents, because
Yeah.
I couldn't handle the strangers in my room. So I
Yeah.
had to get
Yeah.
away from that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, and then so that was developing naturally. Did you ever at any point, because I have heard some people who've had abilities like this, they want to block them out
Oh yeah.
because they are so scary. Did you have that?
Yes. So they naturally sort of went into the background as I got older and focused on other things. I wasn't activating them. And so they sort of receded, which was nice. And then I decided, again, this was after my daughter was born, and I was getting more into it again. And I was like, I want these back. And so I really worked on opening the channels back up. And again, when you're wide open, you can't really predict when people are coming and going. And one of the moments that made me actually put a boundary on it, I had to learn spiritual boundaries, was
Yeah.
one night I was sleeping and I woke up and there was two men standing by my bed. Of course, this was men in spirit, not real men.
Yes.
But it was enough to freak me out. And I was like, nope, nope, can't do this. This is back to
Yeah.
now I'm back to 4 and I'm freaking out again.
Yeah.
And so I set hours. I said, look, I cannot do this all the time. I have to live my life. I've got people to take care of, and I can't be freaked out that somebody's in here that I don't know. And so I actually set boundaries with spirit, and I said, I will come to you when I am open and ready to receive this. Now, what
Yes.
that does is it does limit the ability to a degree,
Right.
because you're
Yeah.
not staying
It's like
open.
setting up your calendar and saying, this is when I'm available.
Pretty
This
much.
is when I'm not
Yeah,
available.
exactly. So it takes me a little longer when I'm doing, for example, mediumship work and I'm talking to someone on the other side. It takes me a little bit longer to open up, which is why when I book those sessions, they are a longer session to give myself
Yeah.
that time to do it.
Yeah.
Because you can be quite open. And I do feel like, just like we need to learn healthy boundaries on earth, we also can learn healthy boundaries in the spiritual realm as well. Because really,
Yeah.
and truly, there's nothing that's really that different between us and spirit. We just have a body, but it's the
Yes.
same. It's people walking around. Some of them are pleasant, some of them aren't. It's like you
Yeah,
want to have
absolutely.
healthy boundaries with that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Oh, well done you. I have heard that as well. A friend of mine who does something very similar. She literally said the same thing. I had to say, right, at 8 o'clock at night, that's it. I say finished.
That's right. It's
You can come back tomorrow at 10.
and we see those TV shows where you see the mediums just walking around and they're like, "Oh, your grandma's here," and it's like, "Oh my God, that would drive me nuts."
Yeah,
Some people can handle it. I really
yeah,
need my me time and family
yeah,
time, and then
absolutely.
there's spirit time.
Because otherwise, it's just going back to the burnout
It
situation,
is.
isn't it? If you never have that off switch, you never have sort of a little bit of downtime, you time, as you say.
Yes.
Yeah. No, that's wonderful. So if you were able to talk to mums who are going through that moment of, because mums always feel guilty, right?
Mhm.
They feel as soon as you become a mum, you feel guilty if you do breastfeed, you feel guilty if you don't breastfeed, you feel guilty if you do go back to work, if you don't go to work, whatever it might be. So we've gone through this period where we're raising these young children, a lot of stress, obviously wonderful as well. But then the children are starting to get a little bit older. What would you say to mums when they're reaching this stage where they're getting a little bit of time back for themselves? What advice would you give them in order for them to then spring forward into creating their best life ever after having raised young children?
I would say start from a place of grace for yourself. What I mean
Mm.
by that is usually, I don't know, I'm sure you've had this experience too. You know how when someone takes your kids and you finally get you time and you're so excited because of all the things that you can do, and as soon as they leave you, you almost go into a freeze state because
It's like, what do I do?
I don't know what to do with myself because there's so now everything's available and I cannot choose. I feel like
Yes.
the first thing is just allowing yourself the grace that maybe that free state is coming in from your nervous system so that you don't do anything
Yeah,
just
yeah,
until you can regulate, because it is like it's like switching, right? You're switching from one mindset of taking care of other people and constantly tracking them over to focusing on yourself. And I feel like we need that moment of just regulation where we're allowed
yeah,
to just stop for a moment and give ourselves
yeah,
compassion and grace that I know that this is my time, and I want to get down to something, but I need that moment to regulate and come back to
yeah,
myself and not feel guilty for wasting time. That's another place that I found guilt, right? Like it's so easy to go into mom guilt about everything. And
Yes.
a big
Yes.
part of it is let's stay present. Let's just stay present and get in touch with what's going on in our system. What do you need right now? What do I need right now? So I love to put my hands over my heart and just check in. What
Oh,
do I
that's
need right
nice.
now?
Yeah.
And there's times where it's like, I need to just stop and sit here for a minute and just be. And that's such a beautiful gift to give yourself. And it
Yeah.
implies a trust, right? It implies trust that whatever I'm supposed to do will come to me next.
Yes.
And I find
Agreed.
that that's the little piece we miss so much because we're going from doing to doing, and we really need to give ourselves space to be.
Yeah. Yeah, to tap into source. And we would have grown as well so much through that period of raising small children that maybe the goals they had before they had children won't be the same. I mean, you are going to be an actress.
Yes. Yes, and I remember initially when I was pregnant with my daughter going into sort of a spin about that and going, what's happening? And like I worked so hard to build this path and what's
Mm,
happening. And of course, as soon as she came, I looked at her and I was like, well, I choose you, obviously. I mean, it
yeah,
wasn't a choice at that point, which
no,
you don't really know
no,
that until you're there.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
but I actually learned that, the universe has a funny way of giving us exactly what we need, even when we don't know we need it. And the training that I received through my acting career actually served me quite well at being a coach because there was a lot of
Oh,
work
brilliant.
about self observation, but also the ability to observe and listen to other people. So I was given a lot of skills that I had no idea would be utilized in a different way. Now, looking back, I don't see it as a waste. I see it as a stepping stone on the path I was always meant to be on. And it's hard
Oh,
to
that's
see that in the
fantastic.
moment. And
Yeah,
if you're a mom who's maybe had a career and now you're doing more the mom thing and you're not sure whether or not that career is going to be there for you, again,
yeah,
I would say this comes back to trust and know that this is all part of a divine plan. Your children are included in it. It's giving you
yeah,
something that in the future you're going to look back and it will all make sense why it happened this way. It might
yeah,
not make sense right now, but this is where we go into trust. And we
yes.
all we need to do
The
is
trust again.
yes, tap
It
in, stay
sounds
present.
simple, doesn't it? Sounds simple.
It sounds simple. It is probably one of the trickiest things that we can do because
Yeah,
again,
yeah,
what are we saying to ourselves when we don't trust ourselves?
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Super.
Mm. And do you have any exercises or little rituals that you might suggest that would help people learn to trust themselves?
Absolutely. In fact, I actually developed a 5-part meditation series to help you tap deeper into your self trust and your intuition. And that's something that's
Wow.
available on my website. So if you want to have those 5 meditations and the guidance that takes you deeper into self trust and opening up your intuition, you can access that at my website, which is blythestarlight.com. It's a free 5-part meditation series that you get to keep.
So Blythe with an E?
Blythe with an E. So BLYTHE Starlight, all one word.com. Blythe Starlight.
.com. Wonderful. No, that sounds amazing. I'm definitely going for that. Oh, and I have to say, going back maybe a little bit to the girly femininity bit, I saw some gorgeous jewelry.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Tell me about your lovely jewelry.
Yeah, so that was, if we go back in my story, I'm like chronicling it. If we go back to where my daughter was born, that's where the art all started coming forward and this jewelry started coming forward. And that was a process in and of itself. It's literally like another child of mine, and she's grown into a beautiful
Wow.
young lady, but
Oh,
she's
how lovely.
just
That's
the
wonderful.
need to create something physically was
Mm.
really strong with my daughter
Yeah,
Madeline, and that's when
yeah.
the jewelry was born. But that I didn't know at the time the jewelry was actually again, taking me deeper into the spiritual stuff, because everything I make now, I'm using beautiful crystals with it, and crystals hold so much information and energy
Yes.
with through their beautiful structure, their lattice work. It's sacred geometry. That's what makes it a
Yeah.
crystal. So I
Yes.
love using that in addition to the work I do.
Oh, how lovely. No, I had a little peek. Um, Obviously I love crystals too,
Oh, I
so
love it.
it's gonna be I think I'm gonna be poring over those pages. Um, and tell me about, because something that I feel quite strongly about is there has been a trend in the last few decades to talk about how men are to blame for a lot of things. We're coining this phrase of toxic masculinity, whereas in my opinion, I think it's just whether people are good people or not. And I feel it's very important to have a better balance of appreciating men and women equally whilst also honoring their differences. Does anything come to mind for you for advice to sort of bring that forward into our families where everyone is honored, no one is shamed for being either a boy or a girl, but to create strong communities where men and women are equally respected and allowed to be different with the gifts that they bring, and they're honored, but still very equal.
Yeah, that's such a great question. And, how are we going to affect the positive change and experience we want if we're blaming each other for something that you
Exactly.
can't control? Number one, you can't control
Yeah.
whether you're male or female.
No.
This is something to,
And we both have sons, and I mean, but
yes,
we'd both, hate for them to be, blamed just because they are boys.
yes,
Um, so I feel it'd be really wonderful for people to come together and to just honor the fact that no, it's not whether you're a boy or a girl that makes you the ones that are bringing whatever there is to blame to the world. Instead, it's just what the journey that that particular person is on.
yeah,
And one of my favorite authors is David Dada, and he talks a lot about the stages of the
that's
masculinity and femininity, and how there's, I think when people use the term toxic masculinity, they're often using the first stage of masculinity, sort of the my way or the highway, sort of macho jerk masculine. But there is more to it than that. There is a more evolved second stage, and then there's even a third stage for femininity as well.
yes,
But I think it would be lovely as a global community to understand that and to start to learn how to honor each other's differences and use that to complement each other in a lovely balanced way. So if there was anything that you would think of, because you're raising your son, to ensure that they are honored as much as us women, what sort of advice might you give if you were able to? I mean, have you gleaned anything with, say, your channeling or just in your general studies?
there was a bit of advice I heard, and I wish I could remember the source of of it, but it really changed how I am responding to my son. And that was that, okay, so if, let me take it back from an energetic perspective, the masculine and the feminine. The masculine represents a doing or giving energy. It's an outward going energy. And we both men and women have this, right? So anytime we're in that really outward or expressing, it's like when we're doing work, we're technically in our masculine energy because it's an outward directed energy.
Yes,
Where
absolutely.
the feminine in both males and females is an inward energy. It's a receptive energy, and it's holding a space. It's
Yeah,
holding this space. It's the container for which, really, if you sort of look at it, it's the container in which the masculine does its work. It's held by the feminine. Um,
yeah,
and so learning to balance that within ourselves, or recognize both in ourselves and honor both. Neither one is better than the other.
yeah.
If you there's a game, I don't know if you have it in the UK, but it's a game that I grew up with called Hungry Hungry Hippos. Did you?
Yes.
Okay, so for those who
Yeah.
are like, what is she talking about? In this game, you've got these hippopotamus heads that are chomping, and there's these little white balls that are released into the field. And the whole idea is the hippo head chomps and tries to get all the balls. Well, the reason I say this is because I feel like it can illustrate really well how too much of either is not great. So if we were only in our masculine energy, all these white balls would be flooding the field and it would just
Yeah.
overwhelm the system. There would be nothing to regulate it. Whereas
Yeah.
if all that ever happened was taking, there'd be nothing there to take anymore, right? So we need both.
Yeah.
We need the give and the take. We need the holding and the doing. We need the stop and go. They're the complements to each other. Okay, so that's
Yeah.
what's happening on an energetic level, is learn how to balance that within yourself before you're asking the world to do it. Because a big
Yeah.
part here is that we're dysregulated within and we're wanting to see it outside of us, but we are the ones who create it. So if we're not in harmony inside, we're not going to be able to create that harmony externally. That's one. And then this other piece I want to share, because it really did help me appreciate my part in helping him be the kind of man I'd like to see in the world. And that was
Hmm.
this quote I heard someone say, and it's like, when uh, your boy is growing up, he will, one of the ways that they want to show you love in the natural masculine way is to do things for you. And
Hmm.
there's an urge with moms, right, to do it for our kids, because that we see that as, oh,
Yeah.
let me do it for you. That's why I'm here. And it
Yeah.
was learning how to step back and say, no, I'm going to let him do this for me. And then I'm going to show him appreciation for what he's
Yeah.
doing. So
Oh, I love it.
when he wants to make me toast or something, never
Oh, I love
never
it.
stop it or reject it, but always
Yeah.
receive it like the feminine
Yeah.
would, and appreciate,
Yeah.
say, I appreciate that. That is developing the positive masculine aspects, where we're helping
Yeah.
develop these men who are, um, one, we're acknowledging that divine masculine in them, that they're out there
Yeah.
trying to take care of or do something for you. And we are showing appreciation for that, which fosters that I like taking care of you. I like taking care of other people. That's that healthy
Yeah.
masculine energy that we're all looking for. Because without that, I mean, without that healthy masculine energy, nothing gets done.
Yeah. No, agreed. Yep, absolutely. I love it. That's lovely advice. Lovely advice, especially for mums with boys.
Yeah. And
And if there's anything else that you would love for mums to know, is there any other advice that you think, oh, if I could just let other mums know this? There's something that comes to mind
there's
that you can.
Yeah, there's time to enjoy being a mom. There's more time than it feels like. I think that sometimes we have this false belief that time is running out, and it's, I think, just sort of a existential fear that we all hold. But
Yeah.
being in the moment is so important, because, and I remember hearing this when I was raising small kids, and I'm like, I feel like this is going on forever. But everyone was like,
Yeah.
enjoy it. It goes so quickly. And at the time, you're
Yeah.
like, I'm changing poopy diapers several times a day. This is going,
Yeah.
when does it stop? And then, and then, of course, you get to the point where they are independent and you don't have to do that. And you're like, where did it go?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I remember not I remember I was like, I am appreciating it, and I'm telling you that I feel like there's no limit to how much you could appreciate it, and it still goes so fast. So allowing yourself to
Yeah.
be where you are in the process and not trying to push it forward. Like, okay, now I got to get back to my independence. You're going to have plenty of time to do that, but you only get this moment of enjoying them being small and wanting to be held, and and needing you so
Yeah.
much. That only lasts for just a
Mm.
little bit of time. And so
It does,
try to stay
doesn't it? It goes
present.
so quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, I have absolutely loved talking to you, Teresa. I think, honestly, I think we could talk for absolutely ages. Thank you so, so much for taking the time today for talking to us. I really, really appreciate it. Now, as Teresa said, she's given you her website, Blythe. How do you spell it again?
It's Blythe Starlight, Blythe, and then the word starlight.com.
Perfect. But I will put that in the notes as well. So thank you so much. I hope we can chat again sometime in the future.
I would love that. Thank you so much, Elizabeth.
Wonderful. And you have a wonderful, wonderful day, won't you?
I will, and you too.
Once again, thank you so much for having taken the time to watch this podcast. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you have some comments, I do love reading them, so go ahead and leave a comment for me. If you're a mum and you have an inspirational story that you think would help other mums, then why don't you get in touch with me at info@mamastimetosshine.com so you can also be on the podcast. And if you haven't liked and subscribed yet, please go ahead and do so. Okay, till next time. Bye.